Shall we do a quick wrap up?
Yeah. I don't think I have a ton to say, but why don't you go first this time?
So, because we filmed on Tuesday, because we didn't film on the weekend like usual, I only have two movies to talk about, one of which you have also seen.
Hmm.
The first one I have to talk about will be the one we didn't watch, which is Ammonite. I watched Ammonite, which was a new movie from last year. It's Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan. And there's some other side characters whose names are escaping me, including the guy from God's Own Country, because it's directed by the same guy. I liked Ammonite. Everyone's comparing it to the Portrait of a Lady on Fire because it's a period romance between two women who are mostly by themselves for the whole film. And there's, I mean, other reasons to compare it, but mostly that's it. I know that you didn't like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but I really like that movie. I think it's a great movie. It's really good. And Ammonite is a pretty good movie. It doesn't quite, it's not as pretty. It's not as well put together. There's a lot more quiet, silent moments, and it worked better in God's Own Country for all these quiet moments than it does here in Ammonite. Though Ammonite is still pretty good. There's actually, I mean, spoilers, I guess, for Ammonite. It's not a big spoiler, but there is actually some fairly graphic sex in Ammonite, and it's like, oh, it's kind of nice to see that because it's hard. Like, if you're going to see graphic sex between two women, it's going to be porn, basically. You know, you're not going to see that in like a movie. And it's like nice that something like this is just more. We're trying to. Luna likes it too. Uh,
Luna's upset that she didn't get to watch Ammonite. It has Kate Winslet in it, and we may watch it together at some point, Luna, I promise.
but it's just nice that like we're not. I am somebody who believes we should be more open about like sexuality and stuff, and so it's nice that this movie is kind of more open, and it feels more or less like it belongs in the movie. So I enjoyed Ammonite. It's not as good as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which everybody's comparing it to, which is still apples and oranges, even as close as these two movies are. Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan are amazing actresses. I love them both.
I'd
I
like to
don't.
see it, and for the record, I think Portrait of a Lady on Fire was my main objection to it is that it's too self-serious for me. But it's not the kind of movie I would dissuade anyone from watching. But if I'm gonna watch a romance between two women, I'm gonna watch The Handmaiden way over that. I actually have a friend who really didn't like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think it was way too self-serious for her. And she was talking to I believe a woman who was LGBTQ who was like, it's hard when you're part of a subculture and there aren't that many movies that show your subculture. I think you get a little protective of them, and I don't blame it. But it was very much like, well, then what movie about two women do you like? And my friend was so happy because she was like, had talked to me recently. She's like The Handmaiden. I really like The Handmaiden. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I wouldn't.
Well,
I don't have any objections to anyone liking Portrait. It's very beautiful, very well acted. It's just I like a little more humor with
yeah, and
even if it's not a rom-com. It doesn't have to be a rom-com. It just had it I like my romance to be a little more playful and a little more, and it didn't work for me that way. But I do want to watch Ammonite because I do like Kate Winslet. It just hasn't been on my list. It hasn't been a thing at the top of my list yet.
it's based on a real woman, Mary Anning, who was somebody who searched for rock fossils. I don't know what that's called. I mean, ammonite is a kind of rock fossil, I guess. I don't know. The paleontology, I think that's what it
Yeah, it
is.
was a big thing in a certain area of England. I know that.
Yeah, and so and apparently there isn't a lot of history about whether like Mary Anning even having a husband. Like there just isn't a lot about like her relationships. I don't know the full piece of it. I read the Wikipedia, and I think like there was a little bit of objection to people making her be interested in a woman. And of course, I'm just like, well, what? And there'd be no objection. There'd be no objection if she was with a man, but because she's with a woman, there's an
Yeah.
objection. Like, what? Get over
Well, that makes me
yourselves.
think of Bridgerton. I've told you this already. Bridgerton is a popular series on Netflix. Netflix? Yeah, I think
Sure.
either that
I
or
don't. I
Amazon
don't remember.
Prime, one of the two. That I have not watched, but I know that it features a multicultural cast, and I've heard people be like, "But England wasn't that multicultural," and it's like, well, the West was, and we sure don't have many movies that show Western. So
Well, yeah.
whatever. I
Well,
mean,
like,
I understand if I were, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'd care if a relative of mine were shown to be gay or lesbian when they weren't. I'm not that invested in the identities of my.
no. Well, and it's also like it's not. It's a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's.
People do think movies are real, but I mean, that's gone in the other direction for so long that like whatever.
There's two aspects to this. The
Here
first
I
is
am
like,
taking us to a broad discussion again. Sorry.
yes, you are. There's two aspects to this, and then I'm centering us back, which is that, yeah, in like Westerns, the genre of Westerns is like almost entirely white people. And if you actually look at the West, it was, I mean, there were white people in the West, but it was much more like Latin and Black, I think.
But there's even just a ton of French people. There's
Right.
so many Mexican people if you got way out to the West. I mean, it's just California. I mean, come on.
So it's like, sure. And
Like,
then the second part of that is like, who cares? Change history. It's a fictional movie. Like what?
seriously.
Just let it. Like the reason that, you know, LGBTQIA is a subculture might have more to do with like how often we portray it in culture, and less with like if you actually like took a census of like everybody. Like it's probably not much of a subculture at that point. Like there's probably a lot of people who are bi or something, or you know, who are really not sexually like hetero, or even, you know, man or woman. Like it's probably a lot more open than that. So it's like, have more of these movies, more of them.
It makes me think of like Tarantino. I wasn't a huge fan of Inglourious Bastards, but that didn't have anything to do with the history he altered. But I really enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because, like that is the story I want to watch.
I'd rather that be the story than the truth.
Yeah.
Anyways,
back to the movies.
So that ultimately, I enjoyed Ammonite. The other movie is actually a movie that I think you also watched.
I did watch. We watched Intimidation. It's a Japanese noir that our father wanted us to watch. I was very impressed by the filmmaking, but I don't have a lot otherwise to say about it. So I'm going to let you talk about it, and I won't say anything else.
Yeah, it's from 1960. It's got Ko Nishimura, who's actually in a bunch of things I didn't realize he was in.
A ton of Kurosawa.
Yeah, and I've seen him in all of them, and I'm like, oh wait, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy. But like, I can't actually remember the lead of Intimidation. So whoops. But it's only an hour and 5 minutes, but it's shot in such an interesting way. Like, I just love the way it like moves into like the vault, and like how it, like there's these shots where it's just people's eyes, like it's just their eyes, and they're looking at each other and they're making these intense facial expressions, and it's not going for realism. And that's something that gets a lot of people about Japanese cinema, is it's not really, they, at least of a certain era, especially as far as I can tell, you know, farther back in time, you know, in American cinema, they moved towards realism earlier, and in Japanese cinema, that doesn't seem to really happen as much. It's much more affectated and stylized.
Expressionistic.
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe this was how people were really, you know, how people really acted in Japan of a certain era, but not as far as I'm aware. Whatever the case, it's got some really neat shots. The story and plot is a bit more.
Your lead guy there is Nobuo Kaneko.
Which I don't know him the name, so he's probably been in things I've seen. But the story and plot are a lot more kind of standard. This is, you know, it's somebody, it's like it's a heist movie almost, but it's not a heist movie because it's just one guy. It's about corruption, and it's about, you know, stuff like that. And I don't want to give anything away. It's a solid version of that story. I don't know that it really twists anything a lot, but I watched the whole thing and I really enjoyed how they were doing it. So this is not unique, but in terms of the plot, but the acting is really good, and the way they portray it is really good, and the like little twists here and there are really good. The way it's shot is really good. So of the few noirs I've watched that I haven't already seen in the Criterion Channel Japanese noir section, this is probably the one I've liked the most. It's just so neat. Anyways, your turn.
I said I was done talking about it, but I just wanted to quickly add that it's also cool to see that era of Japan, 1960. It's very 50s feeling Japan.
Right.
Are those noirs sticking around for?
I don't think any are leaving this month.
Okay, so I wanted to see. There's one that features a woman.
Zero Focus. Dad watched that.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
So what did I watch?
Miss Panda and Mr. Hedgehog.
Right. So that's the one where the writing is not great, but I enjoyed it because Mr. Hedgehog is a fun kind of a young punk who's been to jail and now he makes pastries, and I liked it. The plot is messy, and my cat, she can't bite her way through the screen to get out, so she's actually trying to bite on the glass patio door.
Oh
It's not
dear.
getting her very far.
Oh dear.
She does not suffer. I will let her have some time. I'll give her a walk, but it's just looking over and seeing your cat try to gnaw on a door is something.
Yes.
I finished rewatching Just Between Lovers, which is a K-drama I like. Another young punk. I was in the mood for young punks. He gets the crap beaten out of him several times in the first half of the drama, and I quite enjoy. I like a guy that'll fight even though he usually loses for some reason. That's a character
Okay.
I like. And there again, I really admire K-drama for like showing different characters than I feel like you get in Western stuff these days. But there are still characters that are hard to find, and the young punky guy that gets beaten up a lot is one of them. So I rewatched it and enjoyed it. Night Stalker. I finished watching the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, and it's interesting because I listened to the podcast Crime Writers On, and they were pretty lukewarm on it, and I know why. It has a little bit of cop worship in it, which is and some of it is problematic. There is one cop in there that it's like, oh boy, this guy doesn't know how times have changed. Obviously, it's about Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who killed a number of people in Southern California and a couple in Northern California. But it's a crazy story. And to me, it's a very LA story. And so it was interesting to see all those parts of it. And by comparison, My Favorite Murder, those women both loved it. And they both live in Los Angeles and are both from California, not Los Angeles, but one of them's from Irvine and the other's from Sebastopol, I think, Northern California. So I think it really helps enjoy that if it's that familiar to you. And I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but I mean, it's a very diverse serial killer story. He killed, and you explore that area of LA, and I'm reading a book, Tropic of Orange, which takes place in LA, and the characters are Japanese American and Hispanic and Black, and you know, LA gets ignored. We live on the West Side, we're white, and that's kind of the LA you see a lot of the time. So
Right. And yet when we walk around LA, it's like, sure, that's a part of LA, but LA is not white West Side.
Right. There's way more to Los Angeles than that. So, but also this might entertain you a little less, but seeing certain news broadcasters from the past and things that are very familiar from growing up in that era, he was the mid 80s, so I was quite young at that point, but some of the stuff is still the news broadcasters and so on. So that was all very interesting. I'm a little more mixed on the production, and I want you to watch it and tell me what you think of it, but you want to watch it earlier in the morning because it also, I'm not sure I approve of the use of crime scene photos in this documentary, and it's a hard watch that way.
Got it. Well, so now we're moving on to what we're planning to watch.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to get to the Night Stalker this week.
You didn't get to another episode of It's Okay to Not Be Okay, and you really, since we're doing rom-coms, it would be interesting if you could get a little further in that for.
I should. I need to get to that. So I'll probably watch some more of It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And I may or may not get to the Night Stalker. I may or may not want to watch that during work hours. I've been really busy at work, so it's harder to watch stuff during work right now.
It's not long, and you don't need to watch it right away. I'll just be interested to hear what you think of it as a documentary, because we've had a lot of discussions about sometimes a documentary is only good because of its topic.
Yeah.
and sometimes the documentary itself can be the production, which is a little different than a fictional.
Yeah. Well, what are the two movies we're watching for the rom-com part of our?
So because I goofed up a little bit and we skipped one, and I kind of changed my mind on something, we're going to do The Lady Eve and I Married a Witch, but we could do Nothing Sacred tomorrow with Mom. But we're also supposed to watch Mr. Holland's Opus. Are you okay watching that many movies this week?
I'll probably be okay watching that many movies. So the plan is to do all four of those. Mr. Holland's Opus is something we're watching because I have a friend who seems to watch a lot of these, and that's really nice of him. He's someone I don't really interact with anymore because we don't live anywhere near each other, and I'm bad at keeping in contact with people. But he's a cool guy, and hopefully, hopefully I'll enjoy the movie and I can tell him good things about it.
I've
And I'm
seen
going to
it
be honest either way.
I've seen it and enjoyed it, so just fine. But I don't remember it that well. So yeah, we'll try to watch all 4 of those this week.
I'm
And
also and I'm also going to watch Yentl because that's leaving today, or well, tomorrow or midnight, whatever. And Jill wants to watch that, my girlfriend. So we're going to try and catch Yentl today. And then I wanted to watch. I've got 2 Godzillas left, and I want to try to get to one of those this week, but we'll see. I also want to. I can't remember if Mirai, is it Mirai? No, Minari.
we saw Mirai.
Minari, I think, is the one.
Right. Is that streaming now?
I think it's rentable now. I'm not positive. If it is, that might be one I get to this week. We'll see. And if not, I'll get to it when I can. And then Synchronic, I think, is rentable this week, which I've been wanting to get to. So maybe I'll get to that as well. And those are my plans. And like usual, I will probably watch a Japanese noir or something in there. And maybe I'll even watch a random DVD that's been sitting on my bookshelf that is borrowed from someone that I want to watch to make the DVD disappear from my apartment someday. And then I'm watching Stargate and I'm on season 9. Ha!
I guess I'm gonna try and watch those 4 movies that we're watching together. Some of them, they're not gonna be long necessarily. I'm watching Strongest Delivery Man as my K-drama right now, which is all about the guys that ride the motorcycle bikes around and deliver stuff in Korea, which is an interesting culture. It's also, that's just kind of the background of it, but it's entertaining. I'm enjoying it. It's kind of different in its structure than some of them. One of my K-drama friends loves it and the other couldn't finish it, so I feel like I'm caught between a rock and I'm like, watch it. No, don't watch it. Oh God, I'm just gonna watch it and see what I think. And I'm also might start Descendants of the Sun, which is like they're like in the military in a fictional country, but it was a really popular one, and one of my friends wants me to watch it, so I might start that. I also want to watch Synchronic. I also want to watch Minari, but that's a lot, so we'll see what I actually get to.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe too much for me too. We'll find out. Anyways, thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good February. May it give you nothing but joy and happiness. Bye.
Bye.